Hello, this is Margaret Ajibade, the STEM Positive Disruptor, and today I have a special guest, Jo Farrell. She's the general manager of Kane Construction. Man, she's just an amazing woman, and she in 2020 she founded a organization, an NGO called Build Like a Girl, because one of the things she wanted to do is to encourage more girls and women to go into trade school. And this is something that I think is so important because what we want to do on this platform, we want to educate, we want to raise awareness, we want to change people's perception and demystify what STEM is. We want to, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We want to showcase the different roles, the different diversity of people that work within the industry. We want to show the different roles there. And it's quite interesting how Jo started this journey. Her journey started as a carpenter and a builder, and now she's a general manager for Kane, which is one of the largest construction company in Australia. She's gosh, I don't know, so much she's done and so much she has achieved as well, that we want to celebrate Jo today on this platform. We want to celebrate her achievement because of the work she's been doing behind the scenes to get more girls into the industry. And one of the things I do want to point out as well, that since she's been working with Kane Construction, she increased the number of women to get a gender balance from, is it 6% in 2020 to now 48%. I guess it's gone up because in 2022 it was 48%. Wow, what an achievement in 2 years. That's an amazing thing. And she's won amazing awards as well. She was recently called she was recently given she was called let me see, sorry. She was called the Citizens of the Year. She was given the Citizens of the Year in Canberra. Citizens of the Year in 2024, and most recently she was named the ACT Woman of the Year due to recognize her for all the hard work she's been doing, again, to encourage more girls and more women to go into trade school, and also go through the apprenticeship route. And it's something we want to really raise up because there's so many people in the UK. We have so many great people that are working behind the scenes that are trying to get that happening. And it's quite nice to see that happening in Australia as well. And in one of the issues that we currently have is that although there's apprenticeships, they're not they're less apprenticeship places than there to fill in the gap. And I'm not sure if this is the same with Australia, but I think it's a global thing. And so I just want to get a feedback from Jo. So why she felt she had to start this organization called Build Like a Girl, and why she felt, because her journey is quite interesting. It'd be quite nice for her to explain what her journey was about and how she's got to where she's right now. So again, welcome, Jo.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's really lovely to talk about this stuff, yeah, like you say, on a global scale.
Yeah. So please tell us more about you and your journey, because I know that, I mean, again, information I have is based on what I've seen on the internet, and for you to get to the stage where you had to fight for your place because you had a hunger for it. You had a hunger to be a carpenter. You was trained to be a carpenter, a builder, but to get a place to work or to take you on to work was quite an interesting journey. It was quite hard until someone gave, and you had to work for free. So please just very briefly just explain what your journey was like.
Yeah, so I mean, I was always attracted to building and construction, even as a kid. I was a Lego kid. I love playing with blocks and building things. So I always had a natural aptitude and a real interest in it. And I knew that was what I wanted to do. But it was discouraged in school. My careers counsellor, when I asked if I could go to the steelworks, so where I grew up in a very small town, sort of about an hour south of Sydney, all the boys would go to the steelworks and that would lead to an apprenticeship. And so I said, well, can I do that? Can I go and follow that same path? And the careers counsellor said to me, if you want an apprenticeship, go and be a hairdresser. And I sort of was confused, and it was just not even encouraged in school at all. And then, yeah, like you said, when I started applying for jobs, I got rejected from about 150 roles that were advertised and on offer. And that was all based on because I was a female. And I had lots of things said around, we don't employ women, we don't want women on our sites, they're a distraction, you're not strong enough, all of these reasons. And so the jobs were there, but they wouldn't employ me. So I had to eventually wear a guy down because I just kept going back and annoying him. And he eventually said, I'll give you a start, but you're going to work for free for 3 months. And if you last that long, then we'll think about it. And so that was really the only option I had at the time because no one else was willing to do that. So that's how it all began.
Yeah. Do you know, it's so interesting because I think this resonates with quite a lot of females, even though we've moved on a lot and there are more, we're more trying to be more inclusive. Our industry is trying to do that. There's still those stopgaps because people's attitude or people's perception of what a female can do is still it's not really perfect because we are still trying to prove ourselves all the time, which is really crazy because we've already done that. And I don't see why we need to keep proving ourselves. We're meant to be inclusive and accessible in the industry, and we talk about skill shortage. So if a female is saying, I want to do this job, I can do, give me a chance, then why are we then fighting with us? Fighting to stop us from progressing in that environment. And I know this is quite interesting because your journey in a way helped you to formulate where you wanted to be and what you wanted to do. And if you look at you and where you are right now, you're the general manager of Kane, a big organization, a construction organization in Australia, and you've achieved so much. But you know what I do like about you, and this is why I'm celebrating you as well, is that you knew your journey and you knew that there were so many girls who were not always given that opportunity, or they weren't even aware of what the options are available to them. And you started this organization called Build Like a Girl in order to combat that, in order to encourage more young girls, but also women to go into the trade school. Because we know about the traditional route. We go through education where we do our, in the UK, it's GCSE. I'm not sure if that's the same in Australia. And you go and do your A levels and then you go and do a degree. Whereas you went a different route to our normal route. And so I appreciate you. I do appreciate the fact that you're quite visionary in what you felt was important because your journey helped you to shape where you want to be, but also you wanted to bring other girls along with you as well. And also just the whole concept of who you are itself. So how, because I know this has been going on, this organization's been around for 2020, and you've done quite a lot encouraging more young girls to go the apprenticeship route. How successfully have you been? Because again, what we want to do is share ideas and share what works and what does not work. And what do you see are limitations for us? Go on.
Look, I think like what you're referring to around the stereotypes around the things that were said to me 28 years ago. You know, I started my apprenticeship in 1996 and it was a pretty lonely journey at that time. I rarely saw any other women on any of the construction sites I was on. You're right, like things have changed and there's a lot more encouragement happening, particularly out of school. And we're also doing a lot of work in schools around year 9 and year 10. So, you know, 15, 16-year-old young women to encourage them to consider, you know, a trade role, an apprenticeship role. You know, the money is good. It's a skill that you have for life. It opens all of these other avenues in terms of a career path. You don't just have to remain a tradesperson. You can go on to do construction management and all of these things. So we really just want to sort of highlight that construction is a really lucrative career. You know, we're a little bit different to the UK in which that we have a huge skill shortage at the moment where we need 90,000 tradespeople in the next 3 years to be able to cope with the pipeline of work that we have. So we have lots and lots of jobs on offer. We don't have the people to fill them, but we're not engaging with 50% of the population who are women. And so the stereotype around all of the things that were said to me in 1996, which is a long time ago, are still being said to young women now. And so the programs that we developed are really based around work experience programs that happen while they're still in school. We then have what they call an ASBA program, which is an Australian school-based apprenticeship model. And that means that while they're still doing year 11 and 12, which might be your A-level equivalent, they actually start their trade then. And so they do 1 day a week, which is paid, and they come out on site and they start doing their trade skill work. So that program has actually been really successful because it means that they're earning money while they're still studying. they still stay at school and finish all of their exams, but when they come out, they've already started their apprenticeship and they're already quite comfortable and confident out on the building sites. And so a lot of the programs that we do there, we find that we have a lot of success in, because we're able to mentor them, support them, you know, provide the structure around them that gives them that support. It doesn't necessarily deal still with the culture that we have and the stereotypes we have, but it gives the girls a good foundation and network to actually, you know, start that journey early on and be a little bit more confident when they pop out. So any of the pathway programs that we do, we usually have a 70 to 80% success rate in terms of the women then remaining in employment. And the ones that generally don't stick around are the ones that kind of probably were a little bit on the fence with working in construction. And once they had a taste of it, they went, no, it's not for me. And that's fine, because you do expect a little bit of that drop off. But we do tend to find that most of the girls do stay in their employment, which is really great.
That's, you know, that's so wonderful. It's quite nice to see that. And it's quite, again, as you're saying, the needs in Australia are slightly different. But again, if you look at it on a global front, there is a need for the shortage to be filled by people with skills, or whatever skills they are. And I think you're in a way it's actually still relevant what you're saying across the globe, that we are experiencing that skill shortage, and we need to tap in to those people that you're not even considering, because you feel, oh, they won't stay in there, or when they get married or they have children, they may not go back, and this and that. But then again, should the government or should the industry start thinking, hold on a minute, we need to try and find a good balance of making sure they still, even if they leave to go and have a family for whatever reason, they're still able to come back in and fit in as well. Because again, if you support them, they support you. That means it also means that whatever the issues are, they're able to help you resolve, because you know they have the experience and they have the expertise as well. Of course, they've got to update their skill set as well, because everything evolves all the time. Thank you very much for that. But, you know, I also love what you did within Kane, because why from, it's quite a very short period where from 2020 to 2022, there was a big leap. Hold on, congratulations, I'm not taking anything away from that. Why did you feel that was, what changed? Were you just recently moved into the company, or you always been in the company, but you weren't in the position to basically make the change, or how did that happen?
No, so I didn't work for Kane previously before this role.
Okay.
I came from another construction company, but when I walked into the role, there were no women. there was a couple of people who were sort of in reception type roles. So there hadn't been any real strategy in place to get actual women on the building sites, on the ground, and particularly in leadership positions. So I was the first to step in. And so what we did was sit down with the directors and come up with a strategy to say, well, how do we engage to get more women? And so the first thing we did was contact all of our recruitment companies that we use and say that for any role we advertise, we want a male and a female candidate. And if you're not going to put a female candidate forward, we don't want to speak to you because you're not doing your job properly. So go out there and find them. And if that means you have to poach them or whatever has to happen. We are always equal payers, so we pay the same amount of money for the same role regardless of gender. So that was something that we made sure that we didn't really care so much about anymore what was written on a resume or a CV, because what we were looking for was the mindset, the values, do you fit within our team in terms of culture? And we talk a lot here about soft skills, and I'm not sure if you talk about that where you are, but soft skills are around empathy, and it's around a different style of management in terms of, more tuned to health and well-being of your workers, and more tuned to sort of having the conversations around performance and all of those things, rather than more a masculine approach, which is pretty blunt, pretty cut and dried, and pretty old school in terms of that approach. So we sort of completely flipped our mindset with how we wanted to manage people. And we openly, I think what we called it was positive discrimination, where we would preference women for roles, and particularly around women who came in, and because we're conditioned, women are conditioned to undersell themselves. And we walk into job interviews and we start apologizing for not meeting all the criteria. And we, you know, when somebody asks us, oh, well, what salary do you want? You sort of have to feel like you have to discount your salary to be able to get your foot in the door. Whereas men don't do that. Men come in and they tell you everything they're wonderful at and tick all the boxes, and then tell you more about themselves, and sort of have this much more ingrained confidence. And they also have no qualms in asking you for hundreds of thousands of dollars because they think they're worth that much. And that is just not how women are raised and conditioned by and large. And so when women were coming and interviewing for roles, we would always ask what their current salary was, and we would always increase it as part of our offer, and we would always make sure it's on par with a male in the company. And the other thing that we were doing was we were actually promoting them out of their current role. So if they were a contracts administrator, we would make them a senior contracts administrator. So automatically we would be stepping them in to a more, you know, valued role, a promoted role, somewhere where they could sort of demonstrate some leadership, and that they were already sort of stepping up and into the company. So we weren't sort of keeping them on the same level that they were coming from. And so, you know, it doesn't take long for word to get out amongst the industry that that's the type of employer that we were. And so that's why we saw just a huge uptake. And I had people sending me CVs on LinkedIn and on, you know, all manner of sort of correspondence in terms of, you know, wanting to speak about what the opportunities were. So, you know, once you open the door and you know, even around parental leave and work flexibility and so forth, we're not, you know, we openly would say to people, we're not here watching a clock. We know that construction has to have a human element where there's people there supervising the work and doing the work, but we also know that we can structure our teams in a way that allows everybody to have flexibility. So if a dad wants to drop his kids off at school on a Monday, and then, you know, the next day that someone else does it. So there was all of the talk around how we actually cater to people based on the fact that it's 2020 now, and, you know, back then, and it's 2024 now. And how, you know, if you want good people to stay in your company, and if you want diversity, and I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about people with disability, people on autism spectrum, people who are neurodiverse, you know, people from different multicultural backgrounds. Half of our team are not born in Australia. 50% are born outside of Australia in terms of our multiculturalism, which brings another element of diversity and thinking and ways of doing things. And so, you know, it was opening the door to every single person to say, well, what do you want to bring to our company that's going to help us be better? And that was the conversation. And that's why we're able to do really big things in a really short time frame, because word gets around really quick when you do that.
Do you know, I'm so, you know what? I salute you, but I also salute Kane, because they had a different mindset. Because you've got, you know, you can't, you know, you could have been there and pushing, and, you know, you may have hit a brick wall, but what you're saying is that they were receptive to change. They were receptive to have a different mindset. And so, you know, I say, as I said, I salute, but also salute Kane because of what they're doing and how they perceive things as well. But also the fact that they consciously make a decision to pay equal wages to both female and male, and that doesn't always happen across the industry, where there's so much discrimination. We're still fighting just to get a few pennies when we're doing just as great a job as a male counterpart. And to me, I don't know if this is an Australian thing or just specifically to your company. I think this is something that organizations just learn from. That look, for us to bring change, for us to see the difference, we want to fill in the gap. You have to acknowledge the contribution that people are bringing onto the table. And, you know, you also spoke about seeing what they have done before. You're not basing everything on their CV, but it's what do they fit into what we are all about. But also the fact that you also look to ways we can promote them so that they can feel valued, that we do acknowledge there's something you're bringing to the table, and we want to optimize that in our environment so that we can then, the value add to us, we can go up a notch. So to me, I don't know if I have to find out more about Kane, not because I'm coming to work, but I think there's lessons learned. There's lessons that we can learn from what you're doing, but also what Kane as an organization is doing as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. I also know that you also you're involved with the government. You're involved in, you know, a range of organizations to bring change. Now, I asked the question, what would you like to see where the governance, and then just across the board, because it's very generic, but it's also the issues that you're facing is also relevant. It's faced in maybe in a different way, but still the same issue we're talking about. Then what would you say to the government and the education system? Because I know with the education system in Australia, you mentioned that what you try to do is deal with the 16, is it 16 upwards years old, and but do you think we need to go back a bit earlier in order for us to try and encourage more young girls to see, hold on, this is an opportunity, this is an option I haven't really thought about, before they start making some informed information about what they think they might like to do in the future. So what would you say to the government? What should they be doing, not just in Australia, but across, because it's very generic, but it's actually important, because whatever happens with you in Australia will also happen across the board, even in the UK.
Yeah. Look, I think you're absolutely right. There's been a lot of studies recently about when do children start making up their mind around gender stereotyping. So when does a little girl think that she cannot be a carpenter or a builder? And they're pinpointing that happens around, for us, and again, the school system might be slightly different to yourselves, but around sort of year 2 and year 3. So we sort of run from kindy, which is sort of 5, 6-year-olds, and then year 1, 2, and 3. So when they're probably around 7 or 8, or sort of 8 and 9, that is when they start to form opinions about what girls can do and what boys can do.
Sure.
And so we've started recently, and we did a project in Sydney in a couple of schools, and that was in primary schools, and there was myself and some other tradeswomen, and there were also some men, and we were all from different sort of did different things. And we would walk into a classroom of these little kids dressed in sort of normal clothes that you wouldn't recognize, and they had to guess what we did for a job. And so we would all line up, and they would put a sign up to say, and for some reason they always think I'm a police officer, and I don't know why. I give off police officer vibes.
Indeed.
But it's always a police officer. And so they have to pick what we do. And so they pick, the boys who come in with us, the men, are always the electricians or the truck drivers, or, the very sort of stereotypical male ones. And the women are the nurses or the teachers or the childcare workers, right? So already these kids have decided that based on our gender and what we look like, this is what our job is. So we then walk out of that classroom and we go and put all our stuff on. So we, high vis and our tool belts and our hard hats and all our stuff, and come in. And the men are coming in and they're nurses. And, they're the childcare workers and they're the school teachers. And so, and as we walk in, you can see these little kids and their minds are just blown in terms of all of a sudden they're kind of like, oh, and you can see the little girls in particular when they see, I usually try and bring an electrician with me called Caitlin, and she's got this long pink hair, and she's very sort of she's not yet an electrician in terms of it, but and so they just can't believe that, oh, hang on a second. And so we've got to change the mindset, because something is happening with conversations at home with mum and dad when little girls and little boys are saying, if a little boy says I want to be a nurse, and his parents saying, well, that's not a boy's job. Is if a little girl turns around and says I want to be a plumber, is she being told, well, that's not a job for a little girl, you need to. So there's things happening there, and they carry that through. And so by the time we get to them in high school and start saying, well, how about, they've been told for the past few years, well, that's not a job for me. And so, yes, government has a role with schooling and curriculum and how we teach and how we talk about careers and how we break down that stuff. And I think that, in Australia in particular, the way that we teach is very outdated and very old and sort of has not moved with the times. And so I think that government must play a really strong role in terms of changing that and changing, the ideology that these little kids have, that they then take into when they're teenagers, and then think that their career options are limited. And so a lot of work has to be done about that. And that is a government responsibility. But I think from industry, our responsibility is to be out there and show ourselves. And it's that whole saying of you can't be what you can't see. And so, they've got to see us. They've got to see the little boys who want to be nurses and vets and other, sort of things, and childcare workers, but the same as the little girls. And so it's, our government in particular spends a huge amount of money on apprenticeship funding and subsidies. And all of this money, millions upon millions of dollars a year. But our dropout rate for female first-year apprentices is 72%. So we do all of this investment and all of this work to get all of these women in the door. And on a national Australian level, 72% of our apprentices leave in the first 12 months. And it's because the industry doesn't support them. There's toxic cultures there. There's the stereotypes that exist, you know. So for me, I'm always having the conversation with government saying, it's like you're flushing money down the toilet, because you're spending all this money and, you know, trying to get apprentices, but you're not doing the work in primary school. You're not doing the work in stereotype. We're not doing the work in the culture piece and changing the industry's culture. You know, so we're getting all these women in the door and they don't want to stay. There's work there to do.
Do you know, I think what you just described is actually happening in the UK, although, you know, we're getting better, and I think people are much more aware because we're so diverse, and the types of people coming into the industry are so different from maybe 10. I just saying, when you first started off, it's so it's changed so much, but there's still problems. Why are we still talking about the same thing? Shouldn't it have changed by now? Because but I think also you're right about the mindset. We need to change that. What is our parents telling our young people? But because your role does not define who you are. You're always going to be female. I mean, it's already that you're going to be a male, but your role, what you do, does not change who you are.
You're capable of.
Well, exactly. And I think in a way it's bad, but again, it's a cultural thing as well, isn't it? Because, you know, it's what we say, oh well, this is what a young girl does, this is what a young boy, because it's been traditional, it's traditional. Well, that's not reality, as you're saying. For us to change something, they have to see. For you to see something, for you to want something, you've got to see something that makes real to you. It's be like people like me, and I think that's what basically you're saying. You know, I'm so grateful for that, because again, what you're saying is so true. The government has a role, the education system has a role, the industry has a role as well, but the media also has a role as well. And we as a community, and we as a nation have a role to play. Everyone has something to do to bring those changes as well. But do you know what? I celebrate you. I celebrate what you've achieved and what you have done behind the scenes, which has brought to you where you've been recognized for the great work you've been doing. And I'm celebrating you. So I'm not just trying to say that, but I am celebrating you. Well, it's an amazing achievement. I mean, but it's not based on you trying to force it. Because I like what you're doing within Kane. I love what you as yourself doing your own organization, and also the you did a building which you sold as a charity. I don't know. It's just so many stuff you do. Like, we can talk about it all day, but look, Jo. This is what I'm saying. We want to celebrate you for what you have done. We want to celebrate you. I know that Australia's already celebrating you, but we in the UK are celebrating you too. And we want others people to hear about your story as well. So, you know, I'm just want to say thank you so much. We can talk about so many things, but you know, you provided solutions which we already know about. And I think the more we talk, we have to keep pushing. We cannot bring change. Change can only happen once we break that wall down. We should not be talking about glass ceilings or things like that. We should talk about, look, we are aware of what we need to do, and we need to do it. Just get on and do it. And you know, and I also want to say also, where Kane, your company is concerned, seriously, I've never, I mean, that they actually, then you talk about positive discrimination. That is powerful what they're doing. It's powerful because also you making that change, seeing you, and you bringing those change because they saw you and so what the input you're bringing in also meant that they can safely say that, hold on a minute, Jo can do it. Look at what Jo has achieved. We want to try it. We'll open the doors to other people as well. So you are a trailblazer. You're a role model. No, but you are, and you know, I thank you.
Look, it's born out of the fact that it's been hard. Like it's been a hard journey, and it wasn't just sort of from the beginning trying to prove that I belonged and I could do the job. Because that's what it's about, right? They wanted to prove that I didn't belong. I had to keep turning up every day and prove that I did belong. And then
exactly.
My dog.
Why not? They said, come on at this time. That is okay.
So I think, you know, part of the journey has sort of then been around, you know, as I then sort of stopped being on the tools and wanted to become a project manager and sort of move, you know, into that next phase of that career growth. And then I found out I was being paid a third of what my male peers were for the same role in a company. And when I raised that with my bosses at the time and sort of said, well, you know, I'm doing all this good work, you know, we've got repeat clients and happy clients, and here's all the great stuff, but I'm only being paid. I was told I should be grateful that I even have the job and was doing that job, because they ordinarily wouldn't employ women in that sort of role. And I didn't have a university degree, so I should be grateful that I, you know, and I was kind of like, but why? Because I'm doing the same job, and I'm actually, you know, doing just as well, if not better, than what they are, but you're paying them 3 times as much. And so I had to leave that job, and I was terrified of it. But I had a really great mentor at the time who said to me, you know, you've got to go, because they're not going to value you. And if you're not going to value yourself, then why is anyone else going to do it? And you have to walk away. And so I had to walk away, and I went and got another job, which did pay me what I was worth. And so then, you know, there's been these steps in my career. And I haven't been alone. I've had really great support around me, and, you know, all of those things. But that's now my obligation, is to give other women that. I've got to pay that forward. And so my job is to make sure that if there's women starting out in apprenticeships, then they won't go through what I've been through, and they won't be treated like I was treated. And if there's a woman who is trying to navigate being paid, you know, what she's worth, then sure, you know, give me a phone call or send me a message, and let's talk about how we do that, and how you value yourself, and make sure that, you know, people are valuing you as well. And so all of those things, it's not about, you know, the awards are very lovely, and it's nice to be recognized, but that's not the work. And that's not what it's about. You know, for me, it's my job. You know, what my legacy will be is making it a better place and seeing more women. And if that happens in my lifetime before I retire, then great, job done, happy, you know. But that's my role. My role is to make sure that, you know, these women are given every opportunity, and certainly don't go through what I've been through. So that's really what drives the whole thing, really.
Well, I am proud of you, and you're an amazing person. You're a great role model. No, but you are. You know, this is why we do what we do. This is why we have this platform. We want to change people's perception. We want to change how we look at ourselves, and we also want to promote those who are making a difference in their environment. And that's what you're doing, Jo. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I want people to listen to you. I want them to hear our conversation today, because I am so proud of what you've achieved. I'm proud. I like the fact that you also said that, look, my drive is not based on the awards, it's to make a difference, because I know my journey, and now I'm in a position to make that change. Because if you weren't in this position now, you couldn't do what you're doing. You couldn't change other people's lives. And this is what we want to do, because we have many women that they get to a point, and sometimes they forget their journey, and they forget what should fall into place. But what you're saying, hold on a minute, I do not want them to go through what I went through, because I know it was a very painful time. But you also said about having the right support people around you. That makes such a big difference, because sometimes it's a lonely world to fight. You fighting and no one else is have your back, but you're saying you had great support. And so we want to thank you, but also thank you for the support around you that made a difference in your life. And that is why you're able to do give back to your community as well. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you. So again, this is Margaret Ajibade, STEM Positive Disruptor. Please subscribe to this channel, support what we're doing. You know, make comments. We want to bring change, because this is why we do what we do. And, you know, having Jo on the platform today from Australia, her journey is just amazing, but she's also a powerful role model. She didn't let the obstacles that came across stop her from achieving what she wanted to get. And look at her now. So, and you know, she's won so many accolades for her hard work behind the scenes. And so again, we want to celebrate you, Jo. Thank you so much for again taking time out to speak to us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.